So, welcome to Economics, everyone. We're Hypercube Robotics Business and Outreach team, and today we're going to talk about different ways to fundraise and walk you through some of the basics. Most of what we'll be teaching is applicable for any season, but we will have some COVID-specific advice as well. All right. So, at the start of a season, fundraising may seem like a scary and daunting task. However, to kickstart all these fantastic fundraising projects, you'll need some basic initial funds, money that you'll need to ensure your team can hold and successfully pull off fundraising events, which may require supplies, transport, or application fees that you have to deal with. Now, for some veteran teams, this can come from money left over from previous seasons, but this method should never and cannot be relied on. You never know how much money you'll be left with the next year. Luckily, there's many options when it comes to raising these starting funds. So let's go over a few now.
Okay, the parent loan system. This is the model we have implemented into our team. Every year at the start of the season, all members will pay a small participation fee. This money is then placed in the team budget where, if necessary, will be used for things like extra parts, maintenance and repairs, and you guessed it, fundraising. Finally, after the season has concluded, the team repays all the parents with the funds they have generated using the money invested at the beginning of the season. We have found this method to be successful. And the quickest and most successful method. However, we understand that for some, it may not be feasible. If so, we recommend holding simple, small-scale booths such as bake sales, lemonade stands, craft sales, events that involve little to no investment for a fair return. When thinking about these events, it is very important to consider the venue, as these sales often rely on exposure to be successful. Try looking for future school robotics events where you'll be able to capitalize on the crowds. Additionally, you could also consider using FlipGive, but we'll talk more about that later. So with your initial money pool in hand, let's get started with some money-making ventures.
First off is nonprofit status. This is a complicated topic, but we will do our best to cover it quickly and efficiently. So, Wesley, next slide.
Next slide.
Before we go into the nitty-gritty of nonprofit status, we're going to briefly cover our experience with the matter. In our first session, we were affiliated with the nonprofit group Piedmont Makers. As a rookie team, we didn't really know much about sponsorships, and so we had a team fee and we drew our money from that. This is not a good thing to rely on, however, since it makes the playing field very uneven and not all parents can afford that. So in our second season, we decided to be independent, a community-based for-profit organization. This meant that all of our fundraising had to be done as a business would without donations or goodwill, but rather an exchange of services and goods. Sponsorships were also more difficult to acquire and generally came in the form of discounts on materials. However, we raised all the money we needed for the normal season. This year, we are associating again with Piedmont Makers to support other teams and be part of the local robotics community. In the off-season, we have already used the status for acquiring sponsorships. So this is the basis on which we will be advising you.
So the official definition of a nonprofit is an organization that uses the surplus of its revenues to further its objective, rather than distributing its income to the organization, leaders, or members. What does that mean? That means that as long as you use all the money you get for robotics, on robotics, you could be qualified to be a nonprofit. Which should be everyone, unless you've already mastered fundraising enough to make way more money than you need. In that case, you should probably be the ones to present this workshop. But let's get back on track. First off, what does having nonprofit status help with? Well, it opens up a lot of grant opportunities and gets tax benefits for anyone who donates to your team. A lot of companies also have matching donation policies. So if you can acquire sponsorships by having a single employee donate, you can get double the donation and a company sponsor. It also makes your team much more attractive as an option for donation. Since if somebody donates, for instance, $700, tax benefits would give them back $198. Additionally, with nonprofit status provides some legitimacy to comfort people about where their money is going.
Wesley, a bit too fast for us.
Yeah, I'm going too speedy.
However, it is very expensive and arduous to acquire nonprofit status by yourself as an independent team, unless you have some lawyers set up who are willing to donate their time and expertise. So, to create an official nonprofit, you also have to have a board of directors, which comes with its own complications, such as the requirement for a non interested majority, which could be annoying when it comes to making decisions. The whole system is hard to transfer control, so going from one team manager to another gets a bit complicated. This is only something you should try to acquire as a team if you think your team is going to be around for long enough that the benefits and incomes will outweigh the expense and difficulty. Luckily, there are a lot of nonprofit STEM groups that might be willing to allow your affiliation. For instance, in our community, we have the Piedmont Makers Group, which supports a lot of STEM activities, but that our team is sponsored by. This means we have to follow rules and regulations, but allows us to use their nonprofit status and be part of that community. Now, if you affiliate with a group like that, it might make your payment a bit convoluted since any donations to your team must go through their system before you can access it. But for those of you who plan on establishing a long-lasting team or that are not deterred by the difficulties of becoming a nonprofit, we'll give an overview of the costs and options. Okay, so the first option is the law firm for nonprofits. When we spoke with them about the possibility of becoming a nonprofit, they gave us an estimate that an all-inclusive hand-holding type package would cost $5,500 and take 30 days. That might seem like a lot to you, but most of their customers have an income greater than $10,000. So us robotics teams are kind of small fries to them.
The second option we researched is much less expensive, but will require you digging through state regulations and forms all by yourself. This is LegalZoom. They have 3 packages which set up name clearance and articles of incorporation, but when you add on the prices for getting the federal tax ID, the 501c3 application, and the California filing fee, they turn out more like this, with the economy plan at $718, the standard plan at $858, and the Express Gold plan at $948. Plus, if you want administrative advice, that's another $156 per year. Keep in mind, though, that all these prices are complicated and could be changing with new legislation. So this should only be a basic idea to inform your decisions. Okay. We are now going to try our best to answer any questions from the previous slides. So if you got any of those, you can either try to share your audio and video, go to the Google slide link that you can see on the top of your screen, or also you could also just put it in the chat. So
there's a small fee from each participant. This really varies depending on what you plan your budget on being, because what you can do is, for instance, if you plan on having a small budget to begin with and then fundraising more, you can have a fee that's like, let's say $100. But if you plan on having the parent loan be your entire budget and then you pay it all back at the end, it can be as much as like $700. It really depends on how you plan on using your money and when.
Yeah, also just, the amount of people on your team. It depends. It's a high amount of variance,
So now one of our main sources of income are events. So these can be nearly anything, but we've grouped them into a couple of neat categories. Let's start with large community events. Now these events are not exactly feasible in COVID times, but are great fundraisers for normal years. Some examples might be a garage sale, a community competition like a cook-off or a race, any large gathering like a raffle or maker's fair, or since Chipotle has a partnership fundraising system, you could even have a burrito feast and earn money off of it. These events are great for reaching out to the community to spread the word about robotics to people outside the FIRST community, but you also raise money at the same time. With such a large outreach, usually the profits are similarly large. For instance, our team raised over $4,000 with a community garage sale. However, you have to recognize that for this sort of event, it has to be extremely well planned. The timing and publicity is key to maximize the amount of people and time, and the effort you put in pretty much evenly matches the success. You need to publicize endlessly without fear and spread the word as much as you possibly can.
All right. Next are private events. These are smaller, generally fancier events like galas, robotics tours, and house concerts. They are very good for getting business connections and sponsorships with a fancier crowd. But to achieve the prestige needed to attract such a crowd, it often costs a lot more money up front for things like fancy food or hiring a band. The good thing is that with this fancier, more selective publicity, you don't need to be constantly posting the event and trying to get more people to come. You don't need and actually can serve such a large crowd. But this means that each person's ticket or contribution must be a little bit larger. Lastly are the most COVID-friendly style of events, virtual events, like this one right now. These are a whole new territory to most people, so pretty much anything you can think of might work, from live craft sessions to food delivery fundraisers. As long as you publicize properly, going to a virtual cook-off, going to a virtual cook-off might not be as interesting as going to an in-person one, so it's much harder to get as many people. It's also not as prestigious or even real to people, so the prices also are going to have to be a little bit lower. Some pros, though, are that virtual events are generally much cheaper and quicker to set up and require less of a commitment. So there's a wider net of people you can reach out to. You could even have a virtual event with people from all over the world if you have it at a good time and you publicize it right.
The one thing that all of these events have in common is publicizing. Your success depends solely on how much you publicize, so you have to be absolutely fearless in getting the word out. For large-scale events, we recommend putting flyers out in every intersection for miles, or even better, making huge signs out of collapsed cardboard boxes to catch everyone's attention as they're driving. For example, when we did our garage sale, we made about 25 big cardboard signs and countless more flyers. Local newspapers are also a great place to advertise community events. Most local newspapers actually usually need a lot of stories, so you can submit an article about your event as a story and instead of an ad, and that way you won't have to pay for it or make it all annoying like an ad. Websites like Nextdoor or Craigslist are also super helpful, and we would recommend posting a few notices a month ahead and then ramp up notices as the event approaches. You want to reach the largest possible group. So the same approach follows with email and the word of mouth, although these are generally better approaches for more prestigious private events than having huge cardboard signs everywhere. You cannot be afraid of people. You really have to put yourself out there, even if it's hard. Just telling your friends to tell their friends or telling random people in the community can bring a lot of people into an event. Now, as previously mentioned, publicizing private events will look a little different. In these cases, flyers and newspaper articles may not be as effective for attracting people to say, let's say, an exclusive dinner or concert at your home. For these, you must look to your connections. You can send emails to companies that you're looking for sponsorships to see if individual people want to come, or you can speak to your family and friends or even acquaintances to bolster your attendance. Let's see. In terms of frequently asked questions, I think we've been asked like what type of events that we've had the most success with, and I'd say probably what we did was for the garage sale, we had a huge amount of success with that because also we advertised it as an opportunity for people to get rid of stuff. So we got stuff from throughout the community, collected that stuff, and then sold it back and advertised it very heavily, and that's why it was so successful. We also had a fundraising dinner type gala event that was pretty successful. That was a bit harder though, because you have to have a more expensive ticket to get people to come.
All right, I guess if there are no questions, we're just gonna keep on chugging on. All right, so, boop.
Okay, so the next topic is big in the first community. It's sponsorships. So sponsorship requests are some of the trickiest and most delicate things you will have to do in fundraising. One slip up and your proposal goes right in the trash as spam. As a result, you'll need to know what tools are at your disposal and exactly what to use them for. To start, let's talk about the initial email request for sponsorships. In this short email, you have to convince the representative that you are worthy of their hard-earned dollars. Start with a brief but thorough introduction. Here, you must explain who you are and what you do. Don't forget that these representatives will have no prior knowledge of FTC. So make sure you don't take any concepts or ideas for granted. Next, you need to showcase your achievements, both in robotics and in outreach. This ensures the reader that their funds are going to a good and worthy cause. Be shameless and confident. Following this is the request phase. Here you must show that the sponsorship will not only be beneficial to your team, but also increase sales for the sponsor. Normally, this is achieved through advertisement and brand placement. Show the reader how you will connect with their company to their target audience. For example, if you're writing for a hardware company, mention how the FTC community constantly needs supplies like wood, metal, and tools. Additionally, try to include specific details on how many people will be exposed to the advertisement at hand. And finally, to wrap it up, be sure to include your contact information if they're interested.
Okay. Next, we'll be talking about some additional tools, starting with sponsorship packages or sponsorship tiers. Now, the use of tiers is not readily encouraged by business experts, and especially so for larger corporations. The main reasons being they present businesses with perks they may or may not want through a cliche and overused platform. Instead, experts suggest using sponsorship pools, or a collection of benefits that the organization themselves can choose from. Additionally, another recommended tactic is to communicate directly to the business to find an option customized for both parties. Understandably, though, this can be tricky, as you'll need an in or some connection that allows you to speak with the business directly. However, on the flip side, the use of sponsorship tiers for smaller and more locally owned businesses can be a great way to present affordable yet fun packages to potential investors looking to support the community. If you're going to make these tiers, here's some things we recommend. Start pretty low in cash value, maybe in the $20 to $50 range. This allows for families and folks aside from businesses to support your cause. Usually perks on a tier list like brand placement or shoutouts will be completely useless to these individuals, so the lower tier should be tailored to them. For the higher tiers, however, you should be aiming for the stars. This value could be in the tens of thousands of dollars range. While you should be expecting beforehand that investors will probably max out on the penultimate tier, you never know when you'll stumble upon an enthusiastic patron of STEM. Additionally, the most overlooked aspect when creating sponsorship tiers is the inclusion of discounts and services. Instead of just flat out giving you a sponsorship, many stores will offer you discounted or even free supplies. It is important then that you are prepared for these kinds of donations, clearly indicating the benefits based on the monetary value of the discount. Finally, don't be boring. Nobody wants to look at a lifeless spreadsheet. Try to add cool titles, visuals, and colors when making the hierarchy of donations.
Now we'll be discussing matching donations, yet another option to consider when requesting a sponsorship. Basically, this is where you hold a fundraiser and a partnered company will promise to match the earnings of said company, or said fundraiser. When writing your email, feature the success you've had in organizing and holding events in the past, and try to be as specific as possible, being sure to include facts and figures like predicted attendance, earnings, and venues. Additionally, these events are called things like Twitch-sponsored potluck or Carnival powered by Target, so you can offer in your email that as well. Ultimately, the company needs to see that their brand exposure will outweigh the expense of the donation.
Okay, now we're going to be looking at the different phases of sponsorship requests while showing you the do's and don'ts through these two examples. To start, the title, very important part. This is where the reader decides whether or not to read your work. It has to provoke interest while still being professional and topical without sounding needy. So let's take a look at these two examples. Here on I'm assuming it's the left for you guys, we have Hypercube sponsorship requests. What we noticed is that while this title does do a good job of explaining the situation, the emphasis is placed on the sponsorship and, more importantly, the asking of the sponsorship request, money that the business will have to give up. Most managers seeing this will disregard the email and just toss it out, wasting your time and effort. On the other hand, let's take a look at this title. Hypercube Robotics Partnership Opportunity. The partnership opportunity puts emphasis on mutual growth and mutual benefit. Additionally, the title leaves some intrigue and some mystery, prompting the business to investigate further and make it to stage 2, reading the email. Okay. Whew. Now we have the intro. Oops. This is where you give the reader some context about what your team does and really what your team does, who you are. Also maybe a little background info about robotics and FTC. So let's take a look at this left intro. We are FTC number 14341, Hypercube Robotics, stationed in Piedmont, California. Our team consists of 6 dedicated high school students, all working tirelessly to build, construct, and code robots from the ground up. Construct a robot for the upcoming season. However, the sport requires a lot of funds to operate successfully, and FTC teams need to register, buy parts, order supplies, and more. All of this quickly adds up, and we look to sponsors to help us with some of these expenses. So, well, what we'd like you to notice is that this intro fails to explain FTC. The reader is almost instantly left behind. Additionally, it focuses on the expenses and the costs that will be burdened onto the company. However, this email does do something right. Depicting the team as young, hardworking high school students gives the email a great emotional appeal that can be useful when addressing the adult world. Now take a look at this intro. Crucially, this one on the right. Well, let me read it first, I guess. We are Hypercube Robotics, a competitive high school FTC team stationed in Piedmont, California. For the past few years, we've been participating in the First Tech Challenge, a global nonprofit that enables students to design, construct, and code robots from the ground up. Last season, our robot went all the way to the World Championship, the highest level of competition, before the season was unfortunately cut short due to COVID concerns. Well, this intro, crucially explains FTC, which is, like we said, vitally important when addressing the normal everyday world. Additionally, highlighting our achievements gives the business an alternative reason to sponsor us, rather than just robotics being an expensive and costly sport. Okay.
Next up is the reasoning stage. So this is where you pull out the big guns. You have to flex and show off your team's triumphs. This shows the business that their funds would be going to not just a good, but a great cause. Don't leave anything off the table. Robotics, outreach, and even personal achievements are viable. Let's take a look. Okay, so on the left we have, additionally, sponsors' funds are always put to good use. They go to our parts and repair funds for the year, helping to ensure our robot stays in tip-top shape. Additionally, we will often hold community service events and STEM education sessions for children. Through our efforts, we hope to lift those in need and promote interest in the sciences. So, while this passage does state that the funds are being put to good use, it focuses primarily on the benefits going to the team. So, and by placing the community outreach second, it comes off as an afterthought, something of little importance. This email on the right, however, our team recognizes the importance of the community, and over the year, and over this season, we have logged 171 hours of work volunteering at food distribution centers, school programs, and more. This summer alone, we have made over 1,100 medical masks for frontline workers and bagged over 200 produce bags for those impacted by COVID-19. Now, while this could use some basic editing grammar work, it does have frontlining the community. And additionally, you notice the specific numbers included. That's really helpful.
Okay. Finally, you have the convincing stage. This is where you show the business that a sponsorship is not only financially beneficial, but also a logical decision. If you are interested, Hypercube offers sponsors, depending on their donation, free advertising on our social medias, our team banner, our website, and even on our robot. Please consider our proposal, and thank you for your time. Okay, although it successfully features the advertising benefits, it offers very few specifics. Who and how many people these advertisements will reach is left out. Additionally, notice the absence of contact info. You want the business to have 0 obstacles, so this is a big problem. This email, on the other hand, to make our competitive and community work a reality, we rely on donations from sponsors. If you would like to directly support STEM for new generations of innovators and pioneers, we kindly ask you to please consider sponsoring our team. In exchange, our team is willing to offer brand placement and advertising seen by thousands at FTC tournaments, on social media, and at Hypercube fundraising events. These robotics enthusiasts are a viable and potentially untapped market for tap plastics. If you are interested, please email us at Hypercube Robotics, blah, 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 blah. Okay. This one does include, notice the specifics on this one. However, it could actually even do a little bit of a better job describing in further detail, like exactly how many people go to these tournaments, or like maybe something like the website traffic or the social media traffic. But yeah, all right. So you end off the email with a professional farewell, and then you're done. So let's get ready to play. Who wants to approach that store manager? Okay, the store manager says, "Hi, how can I help you?" What do you respond? You go with an introduction like, "Hi, I'm with blank. I'm with blank robotics team. Blah blah blah." Would you ask for the sponsorship right up front, like saying something like, "Could I interest you in a sponsorship opportunity?" Do you rob them, saying, "Put the money in the bag," or do you do a more polite method of asking for the sponsorship, saying something like, "I was wondering if you could help my robotics team," like kind of like an indirect asking of a request. So, you guys have any? Type in the chat. What do you guys think it is? You are correct. It was A. You got $200 now. Sweet. Moving on to the next one. What should you say next? What do you think you should say next? Should you say you want to give us money now? Should you say we are going to be buying tools and parts for our robots and we come here quite a bit? Do you say we have lots of advertisements to offer, or do you say we have other sponsorships lined up? What do you guys think? What do you guys think? It was B, because for B, once you say that you're coming here quite a bit, you show to the business that you're like a valued customer. You're going to be coming there a lot. You're going to be spending a lot of money there. So it might be to their benefit that they give you a sponsorship. Okay, next one.
Well, actually, I want to comment on that. This is generally for, let's say, a place where you parts from or that sort of thing. It's really hard to get a sponsorship from a manager of a store that you don't use. So you really want to, you can get discounts from managers of stores that you do use. It's surprisingly much easier than you would think, which is why we're running.
Cool. Okay, what should you say next? If you don't give a discount, we won't shop here. We deserve a discount. We're poor. Please give us money. Or we support a good cause but have limited funds. Now, what do you guys think? Oh, yeah. I'm hearing D. And you guys are right. Congratulations. One final one. This is for the $1 million. Which of the following should you say next? Oh, wait. Oh, yes. So we were wondering if you could give us a discount. So I'm wondering if you could give me a discount. So we really need a discount, or a 10% discount would really help. I'm seeing A. Yes, that is correct. Okay, sweet.
So next we want to present FlipGift, which is a passive form of fundraising. With quarantine and coronavirus, and our team has been looking for new fundraising methods, and FlipGive has consistently proven to be a great fundraising tool. Essentially, it's like a joint cashback credit card. So team members purchase items like gift cards, deliveries, and other online services, and a portion of the sale goes back to the team. So it's stuff that you already would have bought, but if you buy it through FlipGive, you get a percentage back. Additionally, the platform contains an insane number of brands, from Home Depot to Panda Express to Macy's to Lego. Really, anytime you need to purchase anything, there's a good chance that you can find it on FlipGive. Over time, teams can amass a good deal of money on the site. Remember, though, that you only want to purchase things that you already were planning on buying. FlipGive should be a way to earn money without having to spend any extra. They actually have an option for first robotics teams that you get a slight bonus when you join. So we'd recommend using them. It's really helpful for COVID.
Yeah, we've used it all over the summer, and it's been really great.
And okay, so let's move on to another way to fundraise, grants. So, Wesley, grants can be
Okay.
hard to find, but we'll go through the places that you'll be most likely to find them. Big tech companies are most likely to have grant opportunities, especially military contractors for some reason. First partners like Qualcomm and Rockwell Columns are also likely to have grant opportunities, and even more likely to have ones that actually apply to your robotics teams. So these sorts of companies usually have a community outreach section. This might be a good place for finding contact info for sending sponsorship letters, but this is also the most likely place to find grant opportunities. And lastly, one of the major online tools that companies use for having people fill out grants is cyber grants. This is a great way to find and fill out grants, but nearly always requires nonprofit status and a lot of forms. So we recommend making an account with it if you can.
Okay. So when searching for grants, there are certain key phrases and themes that we deem to be red flags. Try your best to look out for these so that you don't end up wasting your time applying to some irrelevant grant. Okay, number one is education and school-related grants. Usually these look promising at first. They'll say things like, we want to further STEM education in grades 8 through 12, or we want to promote learning for use. However, 9 out of 10 times, these grants will be looking for a program proposal that directly benefits. They are usually not for students themselves and are almost never given to student-run clubs or teams. Secondly, all research grants are pretty much off the table. Often held by universities like Stanford or companies like Genentech, these are looking for proposals of study, not generally robotics teams. Thirdly, you should be careful about community funds. These are often held by large corporations looking to help the communities around their stores. And while you may be thinking that through your outreach, you should be qualified for these grants, they typically tend to focus more on programs and proposals that directly benefit the community. Oftentimes, they'll even say specifically that individuals and clubs do not qualify for the grants. And finally, if it's not in the US, you probably don't qualify. Okay.
Let's go over some green lights. If you see these key aspects, there's a good chance this is a grant for you. All grants related to FIRST Robotics are no-brainers. For these, you should almost certainly be qualified to apply. Additionally, it's a bonus if the grant is locally based or run. As for those, you can always play the "We Are Local" card. Finally, some sponsorships will look absolutely perfect, but make sure you always check the deadline and any recent updates on the grant. And we also want to mention that there are a lot of grants meant to support one-time events. So you can use the grant money to pay for something like a fundraising dinner. However, keep in mind that you still need to raise money at that dinner to actually have funds for your robot.